World Program of Action once and for all says disabled people are emancipated. We will no longer be in bondage. We have tasted liberation, and we will take that liberation, become free citizens.
We've moved a long way in the last 20 years. From the days we'd go into a pub and everyone would buy us beer. We couldn't buy our own beer. This was courageous. Now they don't even look at us in the pub. We have to buy our own beer. So that's progress.
Hello, and welcome to a special edition of DNET, the Disability Network. I'm Susan Pettit-Crossman. Today we'll be bringing you the second part of our coverage of Independence 92, an event that was held last April in Vancouver. It attracted over 4,000 people from around the world, most of them disabled. Independence 92 included a conference, an exposition, and a full schedule of entertainment from around the world. Joe Ross, a member of the DNET production team, continues as our guide through the event.
Effective AIDS in the disability community, one of the most important effects is the fact that it puts back on the community.
Almost every subject that you can think of dealing with people with disabilities was covered at this conference.
I feel that I'm just starting to learn, starting to live, actually. Sure, some of you say, oh, he's an old man, and all the rest of it. No. I didn't get out of the institution until 78. And I put it this way, I'm just starting to live.
Throughout the week, it became obvious right at the very beginning that we were going to miss an awful lot. And that would be disappointing because there were so many people from different countries that were at this event that you would want to see and hear everybody, but that wouldn't be possible.
And it's very, very appropriate that Patrick Worth speak first, because he is a person first.
The turnout for the plenary sessions and the keynote speakers was very impressive. You look around the room was so large. People were way at the back, but they had screens all over the place. It was the only way that you could see it. It was unbelievable just looking around at the number of people that were there for these sessions.
We organized ourselves to teach the public about why we should not be labeled as anything but people first. We started with associations that called themselves mentally retarded. And now today, those associations call themselves community living. And it's because People First members took a stand, a universal stand all across Canada. And we said that we are fed up with being labeled. We said that we are people like anybody else and we should be treated like anybody else.
Most people with disabilities live in third world countries. And for those people, it's not an easy life.
Disabled people all over the world are condemned to poverty, underdevelopment, which manifests itself in abject poverty, pitiful lives, street begging. That was the theme of a speech by Joshua Malinga, who was one of the founders of Disabled Persons International. Our vision was to create a worldwide movement and in which to create a world where there was full participation and equality by disabled people and where disabled people enjoyed the same rights with other people.
Today, the words are human rights, dignity, empowerment, the right of disabled people to represent themselves.
Henry Enns, along with Joshua Malinga, was one of the founding members of Disabled Persons International.
Brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, in 1982, the United Nations proclaimed the World Program of Action. The World Program of Action once and for all says disabled people are emancipated. We will no longer be in bondage. We have tasted liberation, and we will take that liberation, become free citizens. Disabled people are citizens with rights in their country, and that was spelled out very clear in the World Program of Action.
I had one older brother, and at the age of 10, I became a victim of incest. I felt alone, frightened, and unsure of myself as a person. By the time I was 15, I had ran away. I went to Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and finally the streets of Toronto. By the time I had 3 children, I had attempted suicide 3 times. Consumer survivors have been an oppressed group since time began. Mental health professionals who traditionally and presently hold the most power within the system are the most reluctant to give any of their power away.
We are the only disability group I know of where the law empowers professionals to detain and treat us without our consent. For instance, I know of people in Japan who are locked up to hide their family's shame. With no legal channels to get out of hospital, they are stuck there indefinitely.
And whistles and all the little accessories that everybody else has, we also have.
A popular feature of the conference was Independence Street. Here people had the opportunity to look at new products, to see what's new on the market and to try them out.
Now we can proceed down the stairs. There's a brake on the unit as well, so I can stop at any point or feather the speed of descent depending on my need.
The cost is right now, the retail price, about $21,500 American dollars.
My chair costs $150. So for the price of yours, I could buy, what, 143 of these, right?
143 of those.
This one was made in Nicaragua for $150. And it's a fairly simple chair. It's a folding chair, a folding ultralight sports type. The biggest problem with most people in the world, of course, is the cost of the initial chair. 4 out of 5 people in the world have no wheelchair yet.
Right.
And by lowering the price of the chair, we hope to break $100 soon.
Right, yes.
Just whittling it down bit by bit will make it more available.
Right. Do you find places that you can't go with your chair and that you would be able to with ours?
Yes, and I find many places that I could go with my chair that I couldn't go with yours.
Like what?
Like in the typical latrine. Yours wouldn't fit, and mine does.
I see.
One thing that impressed me were the large numbers of women that were at the conference. More women are becoming active and taking charge of their life and fighting for change.
I think you're seeing a lot of women here from a lot of countries who can now finally have a voice. Very, very important.
Disabled women has been raped and they have children, and this has also been kept in the family. They don't bring it out, they don't go to the court or police, anything, because of shame it's going to bring to the community or mainly to the family.
It's like we were sheep thrown to the wolves to be slaughtered, and so we had to find our way. So we're trying to see how we can lessen that kind of a problem with the young ones and the newly disabled women.
Violence for disabled women is at least twice as high as it is for non-disabled women. It's not acceptable for any woman to have violence against her. Disabled women are much more vulnerable to it because of their disability, because of sometimes all the caregivers that are around them that have an opportunity, that are providing personal care, the transit drivers. I mean, we're in a very scary situation.
And I like to get more involved with women's movements or groups like this, so I can learn more and help with my own country where I come from.
A woman's healing song.
I think we're still a bit inclined to think that people with disabilities wouldn't have sex, let alone women with disabilities discussing those sorts of issues with regard to intimacy and relationship.
People do see us as not people who are capable of being wives, mothers, caregivers, They just see us, you're disabled and that's it.
There's this whole image of the able-bodied person as being the perfect species, and everything else is secondary.
I was at a Royal Commission on Reproductive Technology public hearing, and we were discussing gender selection by prenatal testing. And of course, it was obvious that gender selection was not socially acceptable. I tried to make a small point, and that being that prenatal testing was designed and deliberately, programmatically delivered to the Canadian population for women of certain ages for the express purpose of discovering embryos that might result in the birth of children with disabilities, and that there was a coercive kind of procedure whereby the would-be parents were encouraged to terminate those pregnancies. And I talked about what that said about the value of life as a disabled person in our society. And it was very upsetting for people to have to confront that fact in our society. And people refuse to confront it. But it is the truth. And it is a truth that we have to identify and dispute with.
And I feel that it's a bit of a crime that even through the technological advancement that people are possibly not being allowed to live because of their disabilities that they may have when they're born.
That's right. Technology has made it possible for many people with various disabilities to survive and to flourish in our society. But when a family are faced with a challenge of bringing up a child with a disability that they're not familiar with, I find at least a range of responses. Those that love life and love the support of people and find their beauty and their value, and those that are fearful of it and more concerned with their social well-being in society and their social status, and find that a disabled person would be a drag in that society. And often those parents want to put those individuals, their children, into institutions. And I think there's still a debate and a dilemma going on in many families' lives as to, do I give my life to my children with disabilities, or do I give my life to my career or my surroundings? And I think that in the long run, we're going to find that as more and more disabled people are visible, active, participating, leading members of our society, less and less fear and stigma will be associated with disability. We've moved a long way in the last 20 years. From the days we'd go into a pub and everyone would buy us beer. We couldn't buy our own beer. This was courageous. Now they don't even look at us in the pub. We have to buy our own beer. So that's progress.
no doubt about it that the greatest achievement that we've made is the development of self-help grassroots organizations. I mean, 10 years ago, even 15 years ago, when we started here in Canada, it was like banging your head against a brick wall. Even the words were not acceptable. Consumer movement, participation, human rights, equality. When you talked about disabled people, these were words that were simply not acceptable. Governments would argue against them. So we've made some headway.
I've seen a lot of politicians who do a lot of talking, but no action is forthcoming, and it's time we do something about things. Talking with people in various disability groups, they have to get involved in the political process, become elected, such as I have, speak out on the issues and make the public really aware in terms of education and having to make people politically aware as well. It's something that's going to have to be done on an ongoing basis. Education isn't a one-time thing, and in terms of a political life, we have to become very active in order to make changes occur.
I don't want you to speak for me. I got my own autonomy. I want choices and rights in our lives.
A major part of the conference was the entertainment. The performers, as much as the speakers, let us know what this revolution was all about.
Every major rights movement, civil rights movement, has had an arts movement that's reflected that. And it's a very important way of, a different way of making the same kind of statement.
I think it's about creating a culture, a counterculture to demonstrate to both disabled people themselves that they can be proud and they have an identity which is positive, but also to non-disabled people that we're not passive people who are pushed around on the wheelchair dance floor. We can actually do the thing. We can actually be the musicians, be the writers, be the artists, be the dancers. I think that's a really important message to get across. And I think that's what we're trying to transmit. We're trying to transmit, I think, two messages. One is obviously about rights for disabled people around the world, but also a message of sort of pride and being proud in who you are as a disabled person. And any artist who is trying to approach any art form would want to put the whole self in and not leave the disability out. And I think that's what we mean by disability arts. Disability is a part of our lives. It can be a very positive part of our lives. Yeah, it could be a lot more positive if, governments did certain things.
Choices and rights, that's what we've got to fight for. Choices and rights.
You know, we knew that Independence 92 was not going to be an easy project. If it was easy, we probably wouldn't have tried it. We knew that there were going to be many challenges along the way, bringing together so many people with so many different interests. Well, there were many difficulties. But I can say to you right now that this project had a lot of people working so hard to try to meet those challenges. Those challenges are learning experiences for all of us. Sure, there were many risks about holding this project, and we said to ourselves those risks were worth taking. Because if we can't come together amongst ourselves, people with so many different interest groups, but yet something so much in common, and if we can't solve these issues here in our own house, how can we expect the society in which we live to be able to solve our issues? Each of us will be able to move forward from here because independence is now the past. And we are living in the present and we are looking forward to the future. And when we move forward to the future, we ask ourselves one question: what next? How can we keep the dream alive? We must work hard. We must redouble our efforts. We must continue to work together as a team. No great social change comes about in isolation. Together we are power. Together we can succeed.
Room for you.
Okay.
For me, Independence 92 was an opportunity to celebrate the achievements over the last 10 years. But it's also, you have to sort of lament. You have to look back and look at the problems that are going on right now. If you look around, there's still an awful lot of people that are unemployed. There's a lot of people that need housing. There's people that can't afford a wheelchair. All these problems are major, and it's not changing fast enough. Let's put it that way. We've still got to struggle. We've still got to fight to become individuals, to become people. We're still looked at as a disability first, and then as a person second. We don't want charity. We want people to be aware of our needs, and we have to fight for that.
I think it's been a very successful endeavor. I'm pleased with the overall outcome. I think it was in some ways an experiment, and it certainly was an exercise in contrast, but it was very positive.
It's the feeling of belonging somewhere. I think that's the most, and not belonging to some tiny bitty, teeny weeny society of nuts, but it's belonging to a huge, enormous, self-respecting, proud community that has a role to play in our society, and that's, yeah, fantastic.
I learned that although we're all different, we all have similar needs, and I think I learned the need that we all have to work together. It's not an individual issue, and the only way that we can get ahead is by working together.
I mean, this is more than words can say. It's not only emotional, it's also a feeling of empowerment, an enormous force, an enormous drive, and people are ready to take over a feeling of pride.
I want choices and rights, choices and rights. I want choices and rights in our lives. We don't want your charity, or you to be paid to care for me. I want choices and rights in our lives. I don't want to be in your care, or stuck someplace out there. I want choices and rights in our lives. Try and sing this. Choices and rights, that's what we've got to fight for. Choices and rights in our lives. I don't want your benefit, I want dignity from where I sit. I want choices and rights in our lives. I don't want you to speak for me, I got my own autonomy. I want choices and rights in our lives. Come on. Choices and rights, that's what we've got to fight for. Choices and rights in our lives. I don't want your sorrow, I don't want your fear. I want choices and rights in our lives. I don't want your guilt trip, I don't want your tears. I want choices and rights in our lives. Choices and rights, that's what we've got to fight for. Choices and rights in our lives. We don't want your special schools, we're gonna get out and teach the fools. We got choices and rights in our lives. Gonna stick out my hand. Together we're gonna make a stand for choices and rights in our lives. Come on, sing along. Choices and rights, that's what we've gotta fight for. Choices and rights in our lives. Thank you very much, Vancouver. Stay strong and proud. Proud to be disabled. Yo!